3.9. Here we go with the Adams administration. Our focus questions today identify how the French Revolution impacted the Adams administration, discuss Adams's response to French aggression, and evaluate the Federalist response to problems with France. So, we'll get back to all those questions later on. Let's dig right into it. John Adams. Okay. Washington steps down in 1796. Washington was elected and serves 2 terms as president. Says that's enough. Doesn't believe that anybody should be president for too long. Steps down, and then we have a real election. We have John Adams against Thomas Jefferson. Now, John Adams was a signatory of the Declaration of Independence. He was a member of the Continental Congress. He helped negotiate the Treaty of Paris with the French. So this guy's been around for a while. He's from Massachusetts, Harvard educated, very smart guy, but kind of an elitist. He believes, that America should be ruled by people of means, who should be ruled by people who are very intelligent. Okay, so he is an intellectual, and he's part of the intellectual wing of the Federalist Party. Hamilton does not like Adams so much. Hamilton thinks that Adams is kind of like too staunch, too rigid. He's not exactly a fun guy. He's like this Harvard-educated guy. Nobody likes him. He's all stuck up and everything like that. So, Hamilton and his crew aren't that big of a fan of him, but Adams is going to be able to narrowly eke out a victory in the election in 1896, 71-68, with an electoral win. So we have an Adams presidency, but as we're going to see real quick, problems are going to bubble up, and the problems are all going to be coming from foreign policy. The French Revolution is still going on, and we still got some big problems. All right, he's dealing with the aftermath of Jay's Treaty. Okay. So after we signed the treaty with that's a typo. Okay. So after Jay's Treaty with Britain, remember we signed that treaty because we basically didn't want to go to war with Britain, so we signed the humiliating treaty with Britain where we basically where we sign everything over to them. Well, guess what? A lot of Americans saw Jay's Treaty as an insult, and they were upset about it. On top of that, and also France sees it as an insult because we're signing a non-aggression treaty with Britain. We were supposed to, remember, the French thought that we were supposed to go and join on their side because we had that Treaty of Friendship on the books since the 1770s, and basically the French aren't going to be too happy, so the French started taking American ships in retribution for Jay's Treaty. So Adams wants to negotiate. He doesn't want to go to war with France. He's trying to stay nice, and he remembers Washington's farewell words. Remember Washington's farewell words? Steer clear of foreign entanglements. Don't get messed up with European countries. So in 1797, Adams sends 3 diplomats to France to negotiate with the French foreign minister, a guy named Talleyrand. Only when they get to France, things aren't exactly going to be going so well. What happens is we have the XYZ affair. So American ambassadors go over. They're supposed to meet with Talleyrand. Instead, the French bring out 3 smaller guys, Monsieur X, Monsieur Y, and Monsieur Z. They didn't even have the courtesy to basically say their names. And these lesser ministers who refuse to meet with the American foreign minister say the Americans cannot meet with Talleyrand to negotiate an end to the hostilities until France pays them, until the United States pays $250,000 to France just for the privilege of talking to the foreign minister. This is known as the XYZ affair. And as you can imagine, this gets people pretty upset and pretty angry. So word goes back to America that the XYZ affair, And Adams and the entire country are up in arms. They are mad. The Adams declares the slogan, "Millions for defense, but not a cent for tribute." Okay, meaning that the United States will not cough up money for a bribe. No way will we give in to this preposterous demand by the French. But if you want aggressions, you better believe we will prepare for war. So the United States begins to prepare for war with France. They created the Navy. They created a Marine Corps. They reestablished an army with an authorization of 10,000 men. Adams knows he needs somebody to basically bring the army together. He names George Washington as the general and commander of the army. But that's really only an honorary title. Washington's an old man at this point. Hamilton is really the guy that takes over, and he's the one leading the charge to basically bring this thing together. And also America commissioned privateers. Privateers are basically pirates that are given commission by a government to go and take stuff, and basically they don't fly under the flag, but they take stuff, and they ended up seizing or capturing 80 French ships during this time. Now, things are getting very, very hairy. You know, we're talking war. People are gearing up. We got an army that's going out there and preparing. So things are getting pretty scary. But luckily, cooler heads are going to be able to prevail. So basically in 1799, war in Europe is heating up. And France also and we send a new minister over to France to try again to negotiate with Talleyrand. Only this time, instead of dealing with Robespierre's government, the government that was chopping off people's heads, we're now dealing with Napoleon. And Napoleon he's got ambitions. He's got different goals. So Napoleon comes to power, and he doesn't want to deal with America. He wants to deal with Britain. So he dissolves the Franco-American alliance. It should be 1777. And only requires us to pay for damages of the ships that our privateers did. And basically that de-escalates this quasi-war with France. We almost go to war with France, but that basically stops it. The Federalists, especially Hamilton, are not going to be happy with this arrangement. And Adams is going to be losing a lot of popularity in his own party because the Federalists really were gearing up for the war. The Federalists are feeling thirsty. They thought that war would be a good thing for this country. They had patriotic goals and ambitions. But Adams says no, war is not what our country needs right now. Washington was right. We need to stay away from this stuff. Peace is what we need. We need to work to really develop our country. We need to really work to develop our people. We're too weak. If we went to war with one of the major European powers, we would be embarrassed and we would lose. However, even though Adams was able to basically come out with a cooler sensibility, and he was able to basically get us back from the precipice of war, the Federalists in Congress were able to do some damage, and that came in the form of the Alien and Sedition Acts. Now, these laws and their aftermath are of stupid importance. Now, stupid, I mean, like, it's insane just how important these things are. We really have to understand this. I mean, a lot of the powers that our country is developing were still kind of being developed. They were still kind of coming about. And things were not set in stone the way they are now. So what happens during a time of war? So the Federalist-controlled Congress saw the tensions with France as an opportunity to take more power. You gotta remember, Federalists believed in a strong central government. They only agreed to the Bill of Rights as a measure to get the Constitution passed. So with the tensions with France, the Federalists took this as an opportunity to pass some laws. And those laws are known as the Alien and Sedition Acts. They are designed to attack the Democratic Republican stronghold and solidify their hold on power. So basically, this is going to be an opportunity to cut the legs out from the Democratic Republican Party and to neutralize their supporters and make the Federalists stronger, using the conflict with France as a predisposition for it. So, there's two laws, the Alien Act and the Sedition Act. Alien. Okay. Somebody not from here is an alien. Not necessarily somebody from outer space, but somebody not from here. So, we usually refer to, so immigrants are aliens. And immigrants are a large part of the Democratic Republican base. So, it was a lot of immigrants supported Jefferson, supported the Democrats, and they were the ones that were into this, states' rights, no big federal government kind of thing. And the Alien Act of 1798 was geared at kind of putting pressure or, basically attacking that base so it wouldn't be as strong. And what they did was they raised the residency requirements from 5 to 14 years for immigrants to be eligible for citizenship. So before the Alien Act, you only had to be in this country for 5 years and then you could become a citizen. After the Alien Act, it's raised to 14 years. And this is even more important. It gave the president the power to deport dangerous immigrants in times of peace and imprison them in times of war. So, in other words, just think about this. The president could be the one who could define somebody as dangerous. If the president defined you as dangerous, then excuse me. Then we could just deport you. We could send you out of the country anytime we want if we're not in war. But if we are at war, I could just throw you in jail. Think about Donald Trump with this kind of power. Okay, think about what he would do. All right, this is ridiculous. This gives way too much power to the president and basically lets him kick people out of the country or jail them for little or no reason. And this is going to be something that's really going to get people up in arms. People are not going to be happy about this. The Sedition Act is going to be even worse. Now, sedition is when you speak out against the government. So the Sedition Act was a law that made it illegal to criticize the government or to speak bad about any government official. Basically, this is eliminating freedom of speech. Newspaper editors and our one congressman are going to be imprisoned because of this. Okay? So basically, newspapers are printing stuff that the Federalists aren't liking, so they're throwing them in jail. The Supreme Court is dominated by Federalists, and they aren't ready to rule against it yet. And the laws were supported by people in a time of the French war hysteria. People really thought that this is a time of war. We need to stop this. We can't have people going out and criticizing the government. So this is really something here. I mean, you're giving the president power to kick people out of the country. You're making it harder for people to come into the country, and at the same time, you're eliminating freedom of speech. This is going to get people really upset, especially the Democratic Republicans. And this is going to be a case of a genie being let out of the bottle. This is going to get ugly. The Kentucky and Virginia resolutions. This concept is going to be super important. Jefferson is no slouch. Madison is no slouch. These guys, Jefferson writes the Declaration of Independence. Madison helped write the Constitution. He's a writer of the Federalist Papers. And these guys are going to work with the state legislatures in Kentucky and Virginia. And they're going to basically be the anonymous writers of laws that are passed by that states that basically said the states are here's what it's arguing. Because the federal government draws its power from the states have the right to nullify federal laws that they view as unconstitutional. So, let me break this down. The Federalist government passes the Alien and Sedition Acts. people like Jefferson and Madison believe that the government goes too far passing the Alien and Sedition Acts. So they come up with this idea of nullification. That if a state does not agree with a federal law, the state has the power to nullify that federal law, make it unconstitutional, and states don't have the right, states do not have to follow that. This is like a Pandora's box. Once this idea is opened, it cannot be shut again. And this idea of nullification is going to be like a disease in the early republic. And it's going to pop back up a few times. And this is going to be one of the things that ultimately triggers the Civil War. This is a very dangerous idea because you got to think about it. What makes this country strong is being united. And what unites it is the federal government. And if states could undermine the power of the federal government, we would be right back to the Articles of Confederation. We would no longer be a united country together under one government, but instead we would be separate countries joined together by a weak government, and those separate countries didn't have to follow something if they didn't want to. This is going to be a very, very, very dangerous thing. So, this is going to be used against the Federalists. And remember this nullification idea, because this is going to pop up again. And states are going to bring this up every single time in the South that something comes up against slavery. This is a bad thing. But those Alien Sedition Acts were bad. And Americans recognized them as bad. So, going into the election of 1800, the stage is going to be set for the showdown between the ideas of the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist. What is going to win out? Are the rights of the people going to win out? Or are the rights of the government going to win out? Was government for all the people or for only the wealthy? Did individuals really have any rights, or was government only for the elite? That's what happened going into the election of 1800. And in the election of 1800, Americans came back. They rejected federalism, and they embraced democracy. And it was seen as a direct and immediate blowback to the Alien and Sedition Acts. The Alien and Sedition Acts were seen as government overstepping their power. And because government overstepped their power, Americans exercised their rights and they voted out the incumbent. John Adams would only serve one term as president, and Congress was voted out as well. Thomas Jefferson, as we're going to see, is going to be elected president in 1800, and the Alien Sedition Acts and the ideas that government can trump over individual rights are going to be denied. Let's go back to our focus question. Identify how the French Revolution impacted the Adams administration, discuss Adams's response to French aggression, and evaluate the Federalist response to the problems with France. So this is looking at Adams, and this is looking at the Federalist Congress here. Okay, there's a difference. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And this does it. This is our last module for Unit 3. Yay! Now all we have to do is that essay and that test. All right, here we go, people. Have a great one.